Welcome everyone to this episode of Extreme Makeover Space Edition. We'll be your host. My name is Clémentine, and we have a special guest with us today, Aki. Welcome, Aki.
Thank you very much.
So tell us a bit who you are.
Sure. My name is Akihiko HOSHIDE. I'm a JAXA astronaut from the Japanese Space Agency. And I actually had the privilege to fly with your famous Thomas Pesquet last year.
Amazing, amazing.
So, had a lot of fun, but I know a little bit about space travel. So I'm here to talk about my past and also about our future.
When was your last expedition to space?
So it was last year. We were up on the International Space Station for 200 days.
200 days.
Yes.
And how many days total have you been in space in your
Total,
life?
I think it's like 300 something. Not for a year, but a little less than a year.
Amazing, amazing. I mean, that would be my dream to live in space. Do you think I can live in space?
Absolutely. I think everyone should be coming to space. It's a lot of fun up there. Of course, it's a little different from living and working on the ground. So there's a lot of things that we should think about going up there when everyone else comes join us.
Right. I've actually heard that you need to go through a couple of rounds of centrifuge to go to space. I'm kind of scared. I think it's a little dangerous.
Yeah, so there are couple of training that we do as professional astronauts, and centrifuge is one of them. It's a lot of fun too, from my point of view. But I understand, not everyone wants to ride on that. Right?
For sure.
So.
I mean, my mom is car sick. Are you car sick too?
Actually, I tell you a secret. I do get car sick. So I don't know how we survived the trip to space and back. But yeah, some people get car sick, some people get space sick. I got space sick. I also got sick when I came back. So it's just a natural adaptation,
Wow.
On your body.
I mean, I want to ask the people here, please raise your hand if you're interested to move to space for a longer period of time.
We got a couple. See?
Yeah. Some of you are scared, though. I don't know if it's because it's Monday morning, but we'll see. So why are we here? Because I'm moving to space in 1 week.
Yes.
So you kind of need to help me getting ready for it.
Yeah.
And we have a couple of space experts with us in today's episode. So we're going to try to figure out how I can move to space in a week.
Absolutely. So I can talk about the past, but we have experts here that we can, ask questions about the future.
Awesome.
All right.
But first thing, let's figure out how I will get there. So let's go talk to our first expert.
All right.
Here. So Aki, I love train travels. I love to see the landscape. It's also better for the carbon footprint. And I know we have Amici Monclar here with us. And she's offering to see the Earth from another angle, to go through the stratosphere. So I would love to ask Amici what you're offering. You're talking a lot about something called the overview effect. Can you tell us what the overview effect is and why it's important?
Yeah, sure. So Zefelto, yes, we do low-carbon space voyage in a stratospheric balloon. And the idea is we take you up there slowly, 1 hour and 30 of going up, and you reach 25 kilometers. And you're in the darkness of space, and you're contemplating our planet, and you're seeing the curvature of the Earth, and the continents emerging from the sea. And what we have an actual astronaut here, so he can tell us. But basically, what we understand is that when people look at the Earth, they're absolutely overwhelmed. I mean, it's so beautiful, and you suddenly realize, well, 3 things come often in the stories of astronauts. The first is the beauty, that amazing feeling of being struck. Mm-hmm. The second is the fact that it's unique. You suddenly see that it's life, and it looks very much alive in front of the rest of the completely dead sky. And the last is how frail it is. I mean, how there's just one of it, and we have to protect it. So we are taking people to live that amazing experience. And the goal is that, like astronauts, people can then commit to making, because their life has been completely changed by this experience, they can then help our planet, they can help others, they can commit. We have a lot of programs for that.
Great. So it looks like train travel then. I'm excited.
Yeah.
Aki, you must have had the overview effect too, no? Do you want to share?
Yeah, I think all the astronauts that have been to space have the same feeling, but like you said, it's just beautiful and it's overwhelming when you see it for the first time. And on board the space station, we have a big window called the cupola that's looking down on Earth. And I call that a black hole, because once you get there, you think, hey, I got 10 minutes, I'm going to look out the window. And all of a sudden, it's like 2 hours pass, because you just cannot leave that place. It's just beautiful to see on, the Earth rotating under you. And you talked about how we sense how fragile the Earth is. You can see the atmosphere. It's very, very thin. And also, during my last flight, I realized that it's finite. Right here, air is like everywhere. It's like you feel like it's going to be infinite, but it's not. It's just contained close to Earth, and that's it. So once you realize that, you really think that, and you feel that Earth is fragile, and you got to protect it.
Nice. So with the Falto, I kind of experience space. Let's say now I want to go a bit further. Can I sort of like rent a car to go to space, or travel for a much longer time and go settle somewhere?
Yeah, unfortunately, you can't ride a bike to space, right? So you gotta have some kind of a vehicle to go to space. So renting a car might be one way.
Right, yeah. And actually, I heard about the exploration company. So let's ask John here about democratization of space. Aki, do you have any question for John?
Sure. So, yeah, tell us how we can go to space in the future.
So at the moment, going to space, like you say, it's not very accessible. If you want to book your ticket to go to space, there's a couple of companies currently offering tickets. But to be able to make space something you can go to on an easier basis, you need to make it a lot more affordable. Probably reliability is going to come into place, because if you take the train nowadays, you don't say, okay, it's 1 in 100 chance that you might not get to your destination, so we need to improve that. But we also need to work on sustainability, because we cannot work with bringing millions of people to space in the same way we're doing that now. So at the exploration company, we're working on developing a capsule that is able to service the lowered orbit stations, but eventually we'll also be able to bring cargo and humans to the lunar stations, to the lunar surface. And here, going to space should be as easy as saying, okay, I want to book my ticket, and with this, select your flight for a week from now.
Right.
But also be able to change your ticket if you say, well, I have some plans that changed, and can I get on the next flight?
Wow. That would be amazing.
Right.
I flew on shuttle, Soyuz, and a Crew Dragon, but there's so many different ways of going to space, and we're looking into the future. There's going to be a lot more, and it will be great if we can just go on the internet and make reservations and change it. That would be awesome.
What are the conditions of travel? The general condition. You sit down. How does it look like? What do the people experience when they?
Also, on your typical ride to space at the moment, of course, there's some preparation involved. You know it more better than us. But yeah, you're going to get strapped in, and you're going to be in for a ride. You need to extend accelerations. You mentioned that you need to go through the centrifuge training. I think here we will not see a lot of change. We need to get out of Earth's gravity well. The comfort of the Soyuz will probably be a little bit different than the comfort of the Dragon. So here we will need to work on that. Still, we need to get it cheap. So you want to pick as much people inside a spacecraft as possible. But once you get into space, you want to really experience the free floating. So you want to have a lot of volume available for yourself to really feel that you're in space and be able to float around.
Yeah, if you're strapped in all the time, then you're not going to know if you're in microgravity. So you want to unstrap and float around a little bit.
So I mean, I guess now I know how to get there, but I need a place to stay, I guess, once I'll arrive there. So I mean, I don't know. Can I rent a sort of Airbnb in space? Like, does it exist even? Like, where can I stay when I get there?
Maybe we can book somewhere on the internet. We'll see. But I think we have like a space station, right? Right now we have the International Space Station, but in the future we got other space station coming online. So
yeah, I mean, let's ask Marshall, right? Tell us a bit about how you make it possible. What it looks like?
Yeah, happy to tell you about that. So that's our vision. As we discussed earlier, the ISS isn't going to be up there forever, and NASA's undertaking an initiative to help build commercial space stations. They did commercial cargo, they helped commercial crew, and now going to the moon with commercial systems. Now we're looking at commercial space stations. So Voyager and NanoRacks, we're in the process of building the space station. It is going to allow governments, private citizens, industry to go up and eventually, maybe one day we'll get to the point where you can go online and buy a ticket. That's going to be a while down the road, I think, but certainly right now, our goal is to provide the capability that they have. Our system is about 40% the size, a little bit less than 40% the pressurized volume of the ISS. It has about 40% of the power of the ISS, the initial one. Operating capability, and it has 100% of the payload capability. We'll be able to have 4 crew continuously. We're going to grow those modules. We'll add a couple of modules, but we're not going to do what NASA did with the station, where we just keep building. We're going to launch more stations so we can go to different orbits and we can go service different customers. So, it's not just about doing science and research. That'll be the first system we build, but we have in-space manufacturing. And so things like what the exploration company is doing, other folks are doing to be able to get systems up and down, payloads up and down more frequently is going to be really important, and getting the cost down too. So yeah, so we're building that. We're looking at industry. We're looking at entertainment, tourism. Tourism is an area that eventually I think will take off. So you can just go book your ticket. But this is the beginning. This is how we start.
What do you think, Aki? Do you think it's the future of space infrastructure?
yeah.
What do you think it will look like?
It would be different, right? So right now the space station is for science, but like you said, it could be for tourism. You might have different hotels and different places in space. So you might have like a studio for shooting films, or a studio for recording a new album or something like that. So it could be various possibilities, I think.
Great. So Marshall, I mean, you told us a little bit about your vision and your plans, but how do you see in the very long future? So Aki talked about, having hotels, recording studio, etc. What is your take on
I think
it?
that's totally within the realm of possibility. I mean, 100 years ago, nobody envisioned where we are today with the airline industry. Where will we be in 100 years in the space industry? Where will we be just going back and forth to space? Will we permanently living in space, on the moon, surface of the moon? This is how it all starts. And so, but when I was at NASA, I left about a year ago, I was working that on the lunar surface. How do we go to the moon to stay? How do we go to LEO to stay? So, NASA's turned over LEO in essence to commercial industry, and that's really the first steps, and being able to, how do we actually make an economy, a LEO economy work? We've been doing, you wake up in the morning, everything you do has something to do with space. You check the weather, you check, you communicate, you get on the cell phone and you talk to somebody across the planet. That's all made possible by space. So this is going to continue. This advance is going to continue. And I think 20 years from now, 50 years from now, you're going to see the steps we take today pay a lot of fruit. And you'll be able to live like we're talking about. Let's go to space tomorrow.
So I can go to space tomorrow. Okay, I feel a bit better now. I know where to stay, how to go there. Yeah, I'm curious to hear about from Amici, like how do you plan to plug into all of this with Zefalto?
You mean how do I plan to plug in the whole in this
In
whole
this whole
movement?
new infrastructure, in this whole new vision, like what's the place of Zefalto in all of that?
Yeah, I have to say we have a radically different vision because we are absolutely convinced, some things will not be doable simply because, planet's burning. I think everybody knows that by now. And I think some carbon emissions will have to be restricted simply because we have to allocate carbon emissions to things that are a priority. That's the first thing. The second is we have to shift to a new way of traveling that is actually something that's satisfying, something that resonates with who we are, something that actually makes sense in this whole new way of consuming. And we are absolutely convinced that preparing for a trip, awaiting it, making sure that it's fully consistent with your values, with the way you want things to be done, that it's also made in a way that is personalized. It's not a generic trip, it's really you resonating with the planet. That is really, kind of our vision.
Great, thank you. So, I mean, I want to settle long term. So I kind of need to build my own house in space. I do want to settle permanently. But I'm kind of afraid of the radiation and all of that. I heard there are some kind of limitations to you building a habitat in space. But yeah, maybe Aki, you can enlighten the room here with Professor Lambit on the shielding and how it would be possible for me to build a house.
Yeah, radiation is something that's very dangerous to all of us, right? We're just human, and radiation is much higher in space. So could you talk about how you protect the human beings in space?
Yes, I will be happy to talk about that. As you all know, I mean, the space is, of course, very exciting, and it's very exciting to go there, but it's a harsh environment, and radiation is one thing, but one also should remember before going into the radiation, all other aspects you have up in space. For example, in LEO, you have also atomic oxygen, which is because of high UV radiation, which break down the oxygen. It's a very corrosive environment. You have micrometeor, you have debris, you have vacuum, you have big temperature cycles, and so on. So when I come into the radiation protection, we must put shielding and so into the context which can fulfill all the requirements to be there. Yeah, radiation, of course, is an issue. You have a very high ionization density radiation up in space. You have particles, and this can cause, of course, damage to the people. You have a lot of health effects. You get an increased risk for cardiovascular diseases, carcinogenesis, CNS, pre-aging, Alzheimer's, demence, cataracts. And we don't know really all these effects. A lot of attention to cancerogenesis, but all other effects. And of course, there's also effects on electronics. You can get single event effect, multiple effects, etc. So when we talk about shielding, we need to also look at the whole concept. Because I've worked with shielding many, many years myself, and there has been a lot of focus on how do you do the radiation shielding. But how do you really make a shielding which you can apply in space? So you need to have a holistic approach, I think, to make a shielding material which also withstand all the other requirements in space, especially if you want to use it for satellites or building a habitat or a space station. You cannot just do a shielding material which is good for shielding. You need also withstand everything else. So actually, we are working on a graded C hydrogen-rich polymer, because in space it's totally different from Earth. In Earth you want shielding from gamma rays, normally you have a high Z material like lead, and in space it's actually opposite. This is the worst material because you create a lot of secondary fragments, you get target fragment and projectile fragments. You want a hydrogen-rich material, and it's actually very easy to find out what material you should have for the shielding. I used to say to NASA and others, you need two formulas. You need stopping power and total reaction cross-section. Very simple. But how do you do a material that would withstand all these requirements in space with a vacuum, micrometeor, corrosion, and so on? And that's why my company, Cosmic Shielding Corporation, are developing a polymer, special polymer, doped polymer, which actually is also very light because the launch cost is important. It's 60% lighter than aluminum and can withstand the particle radiation, and we dope it also so they take care of the secondary fragments and the secondary production. So I don't know how much I should talk more about it.
Oh, that's fascinating. I mean, you got to think about protecting the human on board, but you also have to think about how to get it up there. You talked about the up mass, and the lighter it is, it's easier to get things up there. So, yeah, it's something that we all need to think about if we're going to space.
Yeah. For sure. And I mean, all these innovations that are emerging today must be very different from what you've known, Aki, all over your different travels. Like, it would be nothing like compared to what is going on now, right?
Right. Yeah.
So
I think it's if we're gonna go, you gotta improve, continue to improve, and have people up there, more and more people up there, and experience the overview effect. And it'll be great for not just the handful of astronauts, but for everyone.
Right. So it's almost noon, and now that I know how to go there and where to stay, my fridge is kind of empty, and I want to eat. So. Let's move to our next set of experts. We'll see how we can eat in space, how I can take care of myself in space. I still have all these questions before I decide if I'm ready to move to space or not.
Yep.
Let's go.
That sounds good.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, guys.
Okay. So, there are no supermarkets in space. How am I supposed to find food? Am I supposed to grow my own food? Am I supposed to start learning how to do a bit of agriculture? I'm not so sure. We actually have Ben Greaves with us, who can maybe tell us a bit more about how am I supposed to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, our mission at Starlab Oasis, and we're based in Abu Dhabi in the UAE, and so we're looking at making sure that when you go to space, you're able to have, whatever your favorite home-cooked meals are. I'm sure, one of your favorite comforts of space was being able to have something that you were able to relate to Earth. And, we're going to need to rely on that even more the further we go from Earth, whether it be the moon or Mars. And so at Starlab Oasis, we're looking at, making sure that, people from any walk of life, any cuisine, is going to be able to bring the food that they would like to bring along with them, or be able to grow it in space. We want to make sure that whether that be leafy greens, potatoes, sweet potatoes, you're able to have all these ingredients and then have the systems that allow you to process these ingredients into different foods, whether that be cookies, brownies. I'm thinking about desserts right now, but all sorts of foods. We want to make sure that you're able to bring your own recipes and your own home-cooked meals to remind you of home whenever you're too far from home.
But that would really look like a cookie?
We would absolutely love to make sure that you can have a cookie. We actually, the zero-G oven was able to bake the first cookie in space. Yes. And so, we want to make sure that we have more cookies and more brownies, all sorts of different recipes.
So, Aki, what were you eating when you
were? So you just reminded me, you mentioned two things that I learned during my stay in space. First thing is that variety is key. Variety is key, right? So you mentioned, bringing up your favorite food. That's very important, but at the same time, you can't eat the same food over and over and over again. So for me, variety was key. You got so many different foods to choose from. When I was up there, we had, U.S. food, Russian food, Japanese food, and of course, French food, right? So that was, a bonus to us because we had that many variety. And then you mentioned growing food in space, because if you go further and further, right now we're supplying all the food from Earth, but you can't do that. Logistically, it's not going to work that way. So you have to be able to grow things in space, like on Moon or on Mars. And fresh food was really tasty for us too. It's not like, packed meal, right? So it's something very important, and not just, for your nutrition, but mentally, psychologically as well. So.
But how do you grow food in space? Like, what is my 101 lesson on how to grow my own vegetable in space?
Absolutely. It's going to be a whole set of technologies, whether we're going to put them in different chambers, plant growth chambers, on different, whether it be the International Space Station or Star Lab, very controlled environments. And we want to be able to grow the plants very efficiently to very sustainably be able to grow these crops. And so that'll take innovations in LED lighting, in air revitalization, and sensors, cameras. All of these are systems that not only help grow food in space, but also we can have those applications on Earth. We can have those in medicine. We can have those in all sorts of different systems, because we always want to make sure that we're seeing how can we have those applications back down to Earth in vast different groups, not just agriculture. Being in the UAE, we always want to be reusing our water. And so these are also some systems that, by doing cutting-edge innovations when it comes to growing food in space, we can find other applications for those things and have benefits far-reaching.
Right, and so you talk about doing this in space for the benefits on Earth. Can you develop a bit, like, what does it change for you to operate in space? Why do you operate in space and not in another type of harsh environment somewhere else on Earth, for example? What are the benefits?
The benefits. So, there are many places that, we want to continue to grow the food security. And so these have harsh reasons both in space and on Earth. And to be able to have those communities be able to liberate themselves from, some of our food systems that can be very very susceptible to changes, whether it be COVID, all these kind of global markets. We want to make sure that these communities, regardless of where they are, have the ability to grow their own food. And it doesn't need to be all of it, but to be able to have that food independence is so important for a lot of communities, because really without food, you really can't move forward as a community. And so whether that be in space or on Earth, we want to make sure that the communities have access to that technology. And through our George Washington Carver Science Park that we're working on with NanoRacks and Voyager, we want to make sure that the knowledge is not only disseminated as globally, but also thought of and innovated from all these different communities coming together.
Okay. Good to talk about, growing vegetables in space, but I would kind of miss something in my day-to-day food is proteins, right? And I've actually heard that you can make proteins out of insects, and we have Antoine with us right now. I'd be curious about how you do it and why you're doing it, and then tell us what's the link with space, right? Aki, did you ever hear about something like that before, growing?
Not really. So yeah, why not? And yeah, please explain to us, what you're thinking.
Thank you. Hello, everyone, and sorry for the delay. I was sent to the other convention center in Paris. Time to run to here. Very happy to be with you. It's an uncommon place for me. More used to work with agriculture and food and farmers. But since the inception of the company 10 years ago, INSEC, with my co-founder Jean-Gabriel from HEC, we always thought about developing food on Earth, but also helping to do terraforming in future space later on. Why? Because indeed you will need proteins. There is a lot of project done by NASA, ESA, about hydroponics and plants in the ISS, which is good, and we think INSEC will be the tiniest animals that could provide the proteins and the fat that could be required also for the astronauts. So it's a question then of mass balance. Where do you get where they need to eat, like veggies waste in the production, other animal waste, other human waste on the station, and then circle back, collect also the CO2 of the insect back to the plant. So it's how to think about a circular, very close ecosystem. We are developing fully automated vertical farms since 10 years. We are opening 1 hour from here, in the north of Paris. The largest vertical farm in the world is 40,000 square meters on 40 meters high, so very big chambers with billions of insects, developing proteins and fats to feed animals, feeding pets, feeding humans, but also their manure that go back as an organic fertilizer to feed the plants, which is also something to think about closing the loop in space. So we have proven we can run this. We have few people running the plants, but more and more automation can run remotely. So at some point you could think from Earth to the moon could be also feasible. So this is something not short-term tomorrow, but I think by the end of the decade a lot will happen with all the data we are gathering in each farm, and this one will collect about 1 billion data points per day on the growth of insects, all the environment. So we are going to push very far knowledge about data, about insect and proteins in different products. So we are really looking forward to be a part of this fantastic human journey beyond planets and try to help with these fully automated farms and with the products that could be useful, I think, for humans' metabolism.
Great. And would you need to change something in the recipe, like to put it in space? Like, does it need to look a specific way? Or?
Yeah, but it will require oxygen for insects, like any other animals. The CO2 could be then channeled back again to plants, and we need again to feed them. So we feed with different materials from other crops that will be fed there, or humans' manure or other waste we will collect in different stations. So we really need to think about the different systems and how they feed each other and try to have the longest possible without supply from Earth, I would say. So it's a possibility the system could work. Theoretically, the most difficult part is how to execute it from in a very distant place.
So you might work with Ben then.
Absolutely, looking forward to it.
With pleasure.
Great. So, you know, after a good meal, I usually like to go to do a bit of a gym session.
Yeah, you have to hit the gym after a good meal, right? Yeah.
Right, exactly. So, are there gym in space, Aki? Like, did you do sports in space?
Yeah, so we do have to exercise every single day on board the International Space Station. We do have like a big weightlifting device. It's a massive machine, but you do get some, muscular exercise there. And we also have some aerobic exercise machines. And you have to exercise every single day because your muscles get weaker, your bone density will go down if you're in microgravity. Now, if you're going to stay there for the rest of your life, it doesn't matter. You don't have to do anything, right? But if you plan to come back down to Earth, then you got to be able to walk and stand up, and you just have to exercise. So, if you plan to come back home, then you have to.
But if I stay there, I don't need to go to the gym?
Yeah, if you're just going to stay there, yeah,
That's
you don't have to.
Perfect. So actually, indeed, there are no gravity in space. So how do you address this, John? Because it must be quite different, like to build some exercise machines, taking this element into account.
Yes, first, thank you very much for inviting me here. I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you all about exercise in space. So what we need to do when we develop, exercises and equipment for space is we need to think about gravity and how we take gravity for granted here on the ground. Right. Something as simple as you have your glass of water here, all the water floats to the bottom, where in space it floats all over the place. And so we need to take that into account first to think of how we take gravity for granted here.
Right. No, exactly. And apparently you do also things to prevent risk on people's health when they are up there. Can you tell us what it means? What are you doing exactly?
So working with the Human Research Program out of NASA, we've sent many devices up to space to look at how the human physiology changes. And one of the things we're trying to do is to try to miniaturize devices so that they could be used in space. And then then another application for those is more rural applications here on Earth where you don't have the resources in big cities. So a lot of medical devices here, you can go to a hospital, you can do many tests in a hospital, but when you're in space, you don't have those resources.
True. Yeah.
So as we build devices in space, then we can use those again on the ground in rural locations.
Okay. Wow.
that helps not just the people in space, but for the people on the ground as well. So yeah, that's like I see it as a win-win situation here.
Yes. And unique applications are, astronauts are at risk of kidney stones because of bone loss in space because you may not exercise enough. NASA's worked with different partners to look at kidney stones and identify those early, and are developing a device that can move kidney stones with just ultrasound. You know, and so that's an application that's very terrestrial, applicable.
Yeah. Wow.
So as far as I understood from all our experts here, there are a lot of applications in space that can also be transferred on Earth, right? We've heard from Ben, we've heard from Amici, from you, that space is also used to make some trials and some experiences to improve our life on Earth.
Yes.
So that's, okay. Fantastic. So, I can exercise, but you talked about access to the hospital. Like, indeed, there are no doctors in space. So what do I do if I get sick in space?
Yeah.
Aki, like, did it happen to you? Did you get sick in space?
Fortunately, it didn't. We quarantined before going to, ride on the spaceship and go to space, right? So we usually quarantine for like 2 weeks so that we don't bring all the germs with us to the space. But nevertheless, we do have medicine, we do have, tools if something happens, and we're also trained. On our mission, we didn't have any medical doctors, but I got to play doctor if needed. So we did get some training, like first aid, that kind of thing. But it's better not to have those incidents. But still, you got to be prepared. So yeah, if you can talk about, what we do for medical care, that would be great.
Yeah, certainly. And as a pilot myself, I understand the love-hate relationship between the flight doc and the crew member. You want to be good to them, but at the same time,
don't tell the
you
doctors.
don't tell them everything. I know, right? So. And it's neat being the clinician and being the physician because we also get to integrate all of these elements, right? We think about nutrition from making sure you've got what you need to build your body, keep it healthy, but also from the psychological health. We all here on Earth celebrate important events a lot of times by going out and having a nice dinner. We also celebrate our lows sometimes by eating those comfort foods that make us feel better. I've had the opportunity to eat barbecue-flavored maggots, and they were not bad. It was probably better than some of my military MREs, so, win-lose. And of course, exercise and just keeping the body generally healthy and looking at how that can translate to all the population here on Earth is one of the things that we're doing at Leap Biosystems. So as representing them today, some of the technology we're looking at is for improving healthcare everywhere. And yes, we're a space company, we're space-focused, but there is that huge translation and applicability to remote communities, rural communities, operational communities that have the same resource issues that we do in space. Technologies that can scan pills in your hand and tell you what the pill is, we can all relate to. You can think about your elderly loved ones and not knowing what the pills are for, or when they're supposed to take it, or have they taken it. How do we log the inventory? Well, through visual recognition rather than QR codes or labels, we can now see this technology. We've demonstrated it on station. We've all survived 3 wonderful years of a pandemic. And we're here, thank goodness. Yes. But we've all become really good at Zoom and Teams and all these other telecommunication technologies. And you can now call a doctor, just like NASA is used to doing, and JAXA and the CSA and ESA. We're used to virtual care. Space medicine has always been good at virtual care. That's how we provide care in space for the most part. But now we're seeing the regular population accessing that at home. Call your family doc, call your specialist, get a consult from the comfort of your home, sometimes in your pajamas. What we did on the Axiom 1 mission was we demonstrated two-way holographic communication. So imagine that the hologram of the patient came down to the dock and the hologram of the dock went up to station. Now imagine that not just calling your doctor. What if you were up in orbit and you wanted to join your family for a birthday party or celebration? We could bring your hologram down and sit you on the couch and you could be there in 3D for that more human interaction. So these are the amazing technologies that we're moving forward that have huge application for space and will be great as we go further and longer away, but are really relevant to people right here, right now.
So you're making it public friendly. You're making it normal people friendly. Because I'm not extraordinary like Aki, I'm not an astronaut.
Well, if you're going, you must be extraordinary.
Okay,
so I mean, I feel better.
Yeah, you feel better? Yeah. I mean, it sounds like science fiction to me. I mean, during my free flights, I've seen the progress, the improvements in technology, and like in medical area, like the resolution of the cameras, it's fascinating. Now you can, like you said, facial recognition, but the doctors can see you and tell, hey, are you, feeling okay or not? And the technology is just, improving every single year. But what you mentioned, the holograms, it sounds like science fiction to me.
It is, and I had my students at Western University playing with it this summer, and they put it on, they go, oh, it's like Star Wars! And that's the image, right? It's Princess Leia asking for help. That's what comes up right in front of you, which is super exciting.
Yeah.
Now, if you layer that in with biosensors that are continuously wearables, and maybe you have some predictive modeling, we can now then help the crew medical officer, who may not be a trained MD, even in cislunar space, to be there for the crew ahead of time and prevent the issues so we don't need that intense medical care.
That is amazing. Yeah, I wouldn't trust myself doing surgery on someone else, but yeah, maybe a holographic
With the help of
doctor.
an hologram, you could.
Yeah, might be better.
Nice.
Yeah.
I mean, for sure, I think that's what we need, right? We need to make it accessible to everyone, so traveling comfortably, experiencing going to space, having a place to stay that's a station where I can actually live a little bit like I live on Earth. Feeding myself properly, that's really what we need. And I feel much better now because I think that I have everything that I sort of need to go there. So do you think I'm ready? Should I move to space next week?
I think so. I think you're ready. You got all the knowledge about transportation, living there, and you got food and medical care. So what else do you want? Maybe entertainment?
Entertainment,
Maybe the next things that we can think about.
For sure. That would be the topic of our next episode, entertainment and space.
Yes.
I mean, we have an astronaut working with us. Is the Canadian astronaut Chris Hadfield is playing guitar in space. You mentioned you brought a very special object in your last flight to space. Can you tell us more?
I brought a ukulele. I'm not a guitar player, but I thought, hey, I'll have 6 months in space, so I can start learning from scratch and practice, and then be a very good player at the end. No chance, because I was too busy and didn't get to play much. So yeah, I left the ukulele up there for my the next crew members.
Great. All right, I feel ready. I want to thank all our experts here, and really thank you for sharing your thoughts and helping me getting ready for space. So thank you, everyone.
Yeah.
And if you don't see me at the next IAC, I'll be in space.
We will know where you are. So.
Exactly. Thank you.
Thank you to all the experts.
Thank you, everyone.